What's up, everyone, and welcome to this week's CyberSecurity Weekly, where we review the security events that happened in the last week. As always, I have broken the stories down in the timeline, and there's a list of the stories with time markers in the description below. So you can click on any of those time markers in the description to jump around to any story you want. If you find my work valuable, of course, I ask you to hit the like button and share this episode with anyone you know who could benefit from this information. If you have not already, please also consider subscribing to my channel.
Oh, drat these computers. They're so naughty and so complex. I could pinch them.
We start today off with phishing. Researchers from Red Canary observed a new malvertising campaign spreading the ChromeLoader malware that hijacks the victim's browsers. ChromeLoader is a malicious Chrome browser extension. It is classified as a pervasive browser hijacker that modifies browser settings to redirect user traffic. Threat actors spread the malware via an ISO file masqueraded as a cracked video game or pirated movie or TV show. ChromeLoader uses PowerShell to inject itself into the browser and add a malicious extension to it, a technique we don't see very often, and one that often goes undetected by other security tools. If applied to a higher impact threat, such as a credential harvester or spyware, this PowerShell behavior could help malware gain an initial foothold and go undetected before performing more overtly malicious activity like exfiltrating data from users' browser sessions, reads the analysis published by the experts. The malware is able to redirect the user's traffic and hijack user search queries to popular search engines including Google, Yahoo, and Bing. The malicious code is also able to use PowerShell to inject itself into the browser and add the extension to the browser. Upon running the executable included in the mounted.iso image file, the ChromeLoader is installed along with a .NET wrapper for the Windows task schedule used by the threat to achieve the persistence. Executing cs_installer.exe creates persistence through a scheduled task using the service host process. Notably, ChromeLoader does not call the Windows task scheduler to add this scheduled task, as one might expect. Instead, it has been observed that the installer executable loads the task schedule COM API along with a cross-process injection into service host.exe, which is used to launch ChromeLoader's scheduled task, continue the analysis. In April, the researcher Colin Cowie also published an analysis of the Mac OS version of ChromeLoader. The malicious code is able to install malicious extensions into both the Chrome and Safari web browsers. The report published by the experts includes the following detection opportunities for this threat. There is detection opportunity 1, which is PowerShell containing a shortened version of the encoded command flag in its command line. Detection opportunity 2, PowerShell spawning chrome.exe containing load extension and appdata/local within the command line. Detection opportunity 3, shell process spawning process loading a Chrome extension within the command line. Then detection opportunity 4, which is redirected base64 encoded commands into a shell process. We now move on to patches. SentinelOne experts reported that Moshen Dragon focused on the hijacking of programs belonging to security vendors, including Symantec, Trendmicro, Bitdefender, McAfee, and Kaspersky. The hijack DLL is used to decrypt and load the final payload stored in a file residing in the same folder. Luckily, Trendmicro has addressed the flaw. The Moshen Dragon's activity analysis led to the discovery of several payloads uploaded to VirusTotal, some of which were the PlugX Talisman variant. SentinelOne detailed lateral movements, credentials harvesting, and data exfiltration performed by the threat actors by exploiting the flaw in the popular security solutions. Trendmicro confirmed that it is aware of Moshen Dragon's activity and its ability to exploit security solutions, including its software to deploy malware. Trendmicro addressed the DLL hijacking flaw in Trendmicro security that a China-linked threat actor actively exploited to deploy malware. In early May, SentinelOne researchers observed a China-linked app group tracked as Moshen Dragon targeting the telecommunications sector in Central Asia with Shadowpad and PlugX malware. Experts observed an overlap between the TTPs of the Moshen Dragon group with the ones of the Chinese Nomad Panda, aka Red Foxtrot. The researchers state that Moshen Dragon deployed 5 different malware triads to use DLL search order hijacking to sideload, Shadowpad, and PlugX variants. The cyber espionage group also uses additional tools, including the LSA notification package and the Gunter's passive backdoor. Zyxel has released security updates to address multiple vulnerabilities affecting multiple products, including firewall, AP, and AP controller products. The list of the 4 vulnerabilities, the most severe one, is a command injection flaw in some CLI commands tracked as CVE-2022-26532 with a CVSS 3.1 score of 7.8. There is CVE-2022-0734, which is a cross-site scripting vulnerability that was identified in the CGI program of some firewall versions that could allow an attacker to obtain some information stored in the user's browser, such as cookies or session tokens via a malicious script. Then there's CVE-2022-26531, which is multiple improper input validation flaws that were identified in some CLI commands of some firewalls, AP controllers, and AP versions that could allow a local authenticated attacker to cause a buffer overflow or a system crash via a crafted payload. Then there is CVE-2022-26532, which is a command injection vulnerability in the packet trace CLI command of some firewall, AP controller, and AP versions that would allow a local authenticated attacker to execute arbitrary operating system commands by including crafted arguments to the command. Then there's CVE-2022-0910, which is an authentication bypass vulnerability caused by the lack of a proper access token, access control mechanism that was found in the CGI program of some firewall versions. The flaw could allow an attacker to downgrade from 2-factor authentication to 1-factor authentication via an IPsec VPN client. According to the advisory published by the vendor, the issues affect USG Zywall, USG Flex, ATP, VPN, NSG firewalls, NXC 2500 and NXC 5500 AP controllers, and NAP, NWA, WAC, and WX access point families. The vendor has already released a security patch to address the flaws for most of the affected models. The hotfix for NXC 2500 AP controllers affected by CVE 2022-26531 and CVE 2022-26532 must be requested from a local service representative. Experts urge admins to upgrade their installs to avoid cyber attacks exploiting the above flaws. This advice is especially important for U.S. companies as we head into a holiday weekend when it is common for threat actors to conduct attacks. Well, that's already happened. So if you haven't done it yet, then. We now move on to attacks, vulnerabilities, and updates. North Korea-linked group Lazarus is exploiting the Log4j RCE vulnerability CVE 2021-44228 to compromise VMware Horizon servers. Multiple threat actors are exploiting this flaw since January. In January, VMware upgraded customers to patch critical Log4j security vulnerabilities impacting internet-exposed VMware Horizon servers targeted in ongoing attacks. Researchers from the ANLab ESSEC analysis team reported that since April 2022, the Lazarus apt has been exploiting the RCE in attacks against VMware Horizon installs exposed online. The attack chain starts with the exploitation of the Log4j vulnerability to execute a PowerShell command on VMware Horizon's process ws_tomcat service.exe. The PowerShell command installs the nukesped backdoor on the vulnerable server. This backdoor was first analyzed by Fortinet researchers in 2019 that attributed it to the Lazarus apt. The variant analyzed by the ASEC team is developed in C++. It uses virtual functions and RC4 algorithm for command and control communications. The nukesped backdoor can perform keylogging, take screenshots, and file and shell tasks can be run. The most recent version can dump USB contents and access web camera devices using specific modules. The attacker used nukesped to additionally install InfoStealer. The two malware types discovered are both console types, not saving the leaked result in separate files. As such, it is assumed that the attacker remotely controlled the GUI screen of the user PC or leaked data in the pipeline form, reads the analysis published by the experts. In some cases, the attackers exploited the RCE to install the Jin miner cryptocurrency miner instead of nukesped. ASEC researchers published indicators of compromise for these attacks. Researchers from threat intelligence firm Cybel uncovered a malware campaign targeting the InfoSec community. The expert discovered a post where a researcher was sharing a fake proof-of-concept exploit code for an RPC runtime library remote code execution flaw, CVE 2022-26809, with a CVSS score of 9.8. The malware disguised as a fake proof-of-concept code was available on GitHub. Upon further investigation, we discovered that it's malware disguised as an exploit. Similarly, we found a malicious sample that appears to be a fake proof of concept of CVE 2022-24500, reads the post published by Cybel. Both the malicious samples were available on GitHub. Interestingly, both repositories belong to the same profile, indicating the possibility that the threat actor might be hosting a malware campaign targeting InfoSec community representatives or members or people. The researchers are also noticed that multiple TAs were also discussing these tainted exploits on the cybercrime forum. The analysis of the malware revealed that it is a .NET binary packed with Confuser X, a free open source protector for .NET applications. The malicious code doesn't include the exploits for the vulnerabilities mentioned on the fake proof of concept. It only prints a fake message showing that it is trying to exploit and executes shellcode. The malware executes a PowerShell command using command.exe to deliver the actual payload, which is a Cobalt Strike beacon. Then the threat actors could use the beacon to download additional payloads and perform lateral movements. Usually, people working in information security or TAs use exploits to check for vulnerabilities. Hence, this malware might only target people from this community. Therefore, it becomes essential for the InfoSec community members to check the credibility of sources before downloading any proof of concept, concludes the expert, that also shared recommendations along with indicators of compromise. Google's Threat Analysis Group researchers discovered 3 campaigns between August and October 2021 targeting Android users with 5 zero-day vulnerabilities. The attacks aimed at installing the surveillance spyware Predator developed by the North Macedonian firm Cytrox. The zero-day vulnerabilities exploited by the attackers include CVE-2021-37973, 2021-37976, 2021-38000, 2021-38003 in Chrome, and 2021-1048 in Android. The 3 campaigns documented by Google Tag and the way the flaws were exploited include Campaign 1, redirecting to S browser from Chrome, Chrome Sandbox Escape, full Android zero-day vulnerability chain. According to Google, the exploits were included in Cytrox's commercial surveillance spyware that is sold to different nation-state actors, including Egypt, Armenia, Greece, Madagascar, Côte d'Ivoire, Serbia, Spain, and Indonesia. The zero-day exploits were used alongside end-day exploits as the developers took advantage of the time difference between when some critical bugs were patched but not flagged as security issues and when these patches were fully deployed across the Android ecosystem, reads the advisory published by Google. 7 of the 9 zero-days Tag discovered in 2021 fall into this category, developed by commercial providers and sold to and used by government-backed actors. Tag is actively tracking more than 30 vendors with varying levels of sophistication and public exposure selling exploits or surveillance capabilities to government-backed actors. In December, a report published by Citizen Lab, when its researchers detailed the use of the Predator spyware against exiled politician Ayman Nawar and the host of a popular news program. The disconcerting aspect of these attacks is that Ayman Nawar's phone was simultaneously infected with both Cytrox's Predator and NSO Group's Pegasus spyware, operated by 2 different nation-state actors. Back to the campaigns uncovered by Google, they were targeting a limited number of targets in all of the attacks. The attackers delivered one-time links mimicking URL shortener services to the targeted Android users via email. Upon clicking on the link, the victim is redirected to a domain under the control of the attackers that was used to deliver the exploits before redirecting the browser to a legitimate website. The exploits were used to first deliver the alien Android Banking Trojan that acts as a loader for the Predator implant. Alien lives inside multiple privileged processes and receives commands from Predator over IPC. These commands include recording audio, adding CA certificates, and hiding apps, continues the report. The Hacker News first reported that a security researcher that goes online with the moniker H4XOR_DZ has discovered an unpatched flaw in PayPal that could allow attackers to trick users into completing transactions controlled by the attackers with a single click. This kind of attack leverages an invisible overlay page or HTML element displayed on top of the visible page. Upon clicking on the legitimate page, users are in fact clicking the element controlled by the attackers that overlay the legitimate content. The expert reported the bug to the PayPal Bug Bounty program 7 months ago, demonstrating the attacker can steal users' money by exploiting clickjacking. The researchers discovered the vulnerability on the paypal.com/agreements-approved endpoint, which was designed for billing agreements. The endpoint should accept only billing agreement tokens, but the expert discovered that it is not true. It accepts others. The researcher states, I found that we could pass another token type, and this leads to stealing money from victims' PayPal accounts. That's according to the post published by the researcher. As you can see in his image, which we don't have, the attacker is able to load a sensitive PayPal.com endpoint in an iframe, and when the attacker clicks on near to click here, he will buy something. The victim should click everywhere on the page, and it'll send money to the attacker's PayPal. The issue could be also exploited to subscribe services that allow PayPal payments. There are online services that let you add balance using PayPal to your account, for example, Steam. I can use the same exploit and force the user to add money to my account, reads the post published by the researchers, or I can exploit this bug and let the victim create and pay Netflix accounts for me. The experts published a proof of concept exploit for this issue that, according to the expert, has yet to be patched. Fronton is a distributed denial of service botnet that was used by Russia-linked threat actors for coordinating disinformation campaigns. In March 2020, the collective of activists called Digital Revolution claimed to have hacked a subcontractor to the Russian FSB. The group released sensitive documents and contracts about an IoT botnet codenamed Fronton, built by the contractor Zero Day Technologies. The botnet was developed to conduct DDoS attacks, but further analysis revealed that it could be used to coordinate large-scale disinformation campaigns, mimicking the behavior of a large audience online. NISOS researcher focused on the distribution of the numerous content types. This release noted that DDoS is only one of the many capabilities of the system. NISOS analyzed the data and determined that Fronton is a system developed for coordinated inauthentic behavior on a massive scale, reads the analysis published by the security firm NISOS. The botnet provides a web-based dashboard known as Santa that allows operators to spread trending social media events called news breaks en masse. Santa allows operators to create and manage fake social media persona accounts. 2 example lists of posting source dictionaries were included in the data. One involving comments around a squirrel statue in Almaty, Kazakhstan, may have affected the reporting on a BBC story as of April 2022. Zero Day Technologies has changed its domain from zeroday.ru to zeroday.llc. An instance of the Santa system appears to be up at the Santa.zeroday.llc. NISOS assessed that this is possibly a testing or demo instance. It is not currently used by the FSB, continues the report. The botnet was developed to interact with multiple social media platforms, including blog sites, media sites, forums, various engines, sites that have various engines. The behavior model creation process allows an operator to specify the times for each activity. An additional investigation linked the Russian hacker Pavel Sitnikov, aka Flatline, to the Zero Day Technologies. Pavel Sitnikov, a prominent figure in the hacking underground, was arrested in May 2021 by Russian authorities on charges of distributing malware via his Freedom Fox Telegram channel. The Russian hacker is a member of multiple underground hacking communities where he offered for sale the source code of multiple malware strains, including Alina, Carburp, Dexter, Rovnix, and Tinba. The man claimed he was a member of a group that is directly linked to the notorious nation-state actor APT28. If you want to know more about Sitnikov, you can definitely read interviews published by The Record in December. Researchers from Sequoia.io Threat and Detection Research Team have uncovered a reconnaissance and espionage campaign conducted by Russia-linked Turla APT aimed at the Baltic Defense College, the Austrian Economic Chamber, involved in government decision-making such as economic sanctions, and NATO's e-learning platform JDAL, which is Joint Advanced Distributed Learning. The Turla APT group, aka Snake, aka Ouroboros, aka Waterbug, aka Venomous Bear, aka Krypton, has been active since at least 2004, targeting diplomatic and government organizations and private businesses in the Middle East, Asia, Europe, North and South America, and former Soviet bloc nations. The list of previously known victims is long and also includes the Pentagon, the Swiss defense firm, RUAG, U.S. Department of State, European government entities, and the U.S. Central Command. Sequoia researchers started their investigation after the publication of Google's Threat Analysis Group report, Update on Cyber Activity in Eastern Europe, which detailed the activity of nation-state actors against Eastern Europe. The researchers investigated the Turla's infrastructures starting from the domains in the tag report. One of them was wkoinfo.webredirect.org. Another one was jedlectnato.webdirect.org. The first domain exposed an IP address which can be linked to the domain boltdefcol.webredirect.org, which is typo squatting for the boltdefcol.org Baltic Defense College's website. Experts discovered the Word document, War Bulletin, April 27th, 1900 CET, in every directory. The document included an external ping file dubbed logo.ping, which was not reachable during the investigation. Now, the document does not contain any malicious macros, a circumstance that suggests the PNG is used for reconnaissance purposes. It's quite interesting that the request to the file is performed via the HTTP protocol and not an SMB inclusion. Therefore, this campaign does not leverage any malicious code, but has been used for reconnaissance purposes only, reads the analysis published by the experts. Thanks to the HTTP request done by the document to its own controlled server, the attacker can get the version and the type of Word application used by the victim, which can be interesting info to send a tailored exploit for the specific Microsoft Word version. Moreover, the attacker can grab the IP address of the victim, which can be also an interesting selector to monitor the victim's communications via Turla's SIGINT capabilities. The researchers shared indicators of compromise for these attacks, along with the Yara rules. Microsoft security researchers recently observed web skimming campaigns that used multiple obfuscation techniques to avoid detection. The threat actors obfuscated the skimming script by encoding it in PHP, which in turn was embedded in an image file. Using this trick, the code is executed when a website's index page is loaded. The experts also observed compromised web applications injected with malicious JavaScript masqueraded as Google Analytics and Metapixel, formerly Facebook Pixel scripts. Some skimming scripts also included anti-debugging mechanisms. The term web skimming refers to the criminal practice to harvest payment information of visitors of a website during checkout. Crooks use to exploit vulnerabilities in e-commerce platforms and CMSs to inject the skimming script into the page of the e-store. In some cases, attackers can exploit vulnerabilities in installed third-party plugins and themes to inject malicious scripts. Now, this may ring a bell because I've done a number of episodes on web skimming of credit card details. During our research, we came across 2 instances of malicious image files being uploaded to a Magento-based or hosted server. Hey, Magento has been in news numerous times for skimming scripts. Both images contain a PHP script with a base64 encoded JavaScript, and while they had identical JavaScript code, they slightly differed in their PHP implementation, reads the analysis published by Microsoft. The first image, disguised as a favicon, also known as a shortcut or URL icon, was available on VirusTotal, while the other one was a typical web image file discovered by their team. Microsoft also observed attackers masquerading as Google Analytics and Metapixel, formerly Facebook Pixel, scripts to avoid the raising suspicion. The attackers placed a base64 encoded string inside a spoofed Google Tag Manager code. This string decoded to trafficapps.business.data.php equals form. Encoded skimming scripts in a spoofed Google Analytics code, which is sourced from Microsoft. Experts noticed that the attackers behind the Metapixel spoofing used newly registered domains using HTTPS. Given the increasingly evasive tactics employed in skimming campaigns, organizations should ensure that their e-commerce platforms and CMSs and installed plugins are up to date with the latest security patches, and that they only download and use third-party plugins and services from trusted sources, Microsoft concludes. A set of 4 security flaws in the popular video conferencing service Zoom could be exploited to compromise another user over chat by sending especially crafted extensible messaging and presence protocol messages. The vulnerabilities are now addressed by the company CVE-2022-22784, improper XML parsing in Zoom client for meetings, 2022-22785, improperly constrained session cookies in Zoom client for meetings, 2022-22786, update package downgrade in Zoom client for meetings in Windows or for Windows, 2022-22787, insufficient host name validation during server switch in Zoom client for meetings. The most severe flaw addressed by Zoom is CVE 2022-22784 with a CVSS score of 8.1 is an improper XML parsing in the Zoom client for meetings. A threat actor can exploit the flaw to break out of the current XMPP message context and create a new message context to have the receiving user's client perform a variety of actions. This can allow a malicious user to break out of the current XMPP message context and create a new message context to have the receiving user's client perform a variety of actions. This issue could be used in a more sophisticated attack to forge XMPP messages from the server, reads the advisory. Chaining the above vulnerabilities, an attacker could trick a vulnerable client into connecting to a rogue server, potentially leading to arbitrary code execution due to an update package downgraded in Zoom client for Windows that could allow the installation of a less secure version. The Zoom client for meetings for Windows before version 5.10.0 and Zoom Rooms for conference room for Windows before version 5.10.0 fails to properly check the installation version during the update process. This issue could be used in a more sophisticated attack to trick a user into downgrading their Zoom client to a less secure version, reads the advisory for the CVE-2022-22786 issue. Zoom users are recommended to install the latest version that addresses the above vulnerabilities, or you could just not use Zoom. The maintainers confirmed that Tor Browser in Tails 5.0 and earlier is unsafe to use for sensitive information. We recommend that you stop using Tails until the release of 5.1 in May 31st. If you use Tor Browser for sensitive information, passwords, private messages, personal information, etc., reads the advisory published by the project maintainers. Tails is a security and privacy-oriented Linux distribution. It is a portable operating system that protects against surveillance and censorship. The root cause of the alert is a couple of critical zero-day issues tracked to CVE 2022-1802 and 1529 in the Firefox browser that was addressed by Mozilla in May. The vulnerability was reported by Manfred Paul during the Pawn to Own 2022 hacking contest that took place in Vancouver. The CVE 2022-1802 prototype pollution in top-level await implementation and CVE 2022-1529 untrusted input untrusted input used in JavaScript object indexing leading to prototyping pollution. The Tor browser is based on the Firefox browser and is developed as part of the Tor project. The CVE 2022-1802 vulnerability can allow an attacker to set up a rogue website to bypass some of the security built in Tor browser and access information from other websites. If an attacker was able to corrupt the methods of an array object in JavaScript via prototype pollution, they could have achieved execution of attacker-controlled JavaScript code in a privileged context, reads the advisory. The Tails team pointed out that the flaw doesn't break the anonymity and encryption of Tor connections. This means that it is still safe and anonymous to access websites from Tails if the users don't share sensitive information with them. For example, after you visit a malicious website, an attacker controlling this website might access the password or other sensitive information that you send to other websites after or during the same Tails session, reads the alert published by project maintainers. The maintainers alert states that other information or other applications in the operating system are not affected by the flaw. Thunderbird, for example, is not affected because JavaScript is disabled. The stateful security level of the Tor browser is not affected because JavaScript is disabled at this security level. This vulnerability will be addressed with the release of Tails 5.1 on May 31st. An investigation of the infamous Is That You video scam has led cyber news researchers to a cybercriminal stronghold from which threat actors have been infecting the social media giant with thousands of malicious links every single day. At least 5 suspects thought to be residing in the Dominican Republic have been identified. Facebook has long been a happy hunting ground for online crooks who take great pleasure in turning unwary members of the internet community into their prey. It can start with something as seemingly innocuous as a message from a friend, in fact, a cybercriminal pretending to be such, inviting you to click on a juicy link to the next big share fest, be it a music clip, funny video, or anything else you might be interested in. The only thing that's juicy about such bogus links is the bundle of personal details you are giving up by clicking on them. Because if you won't be the latest hot clip you're sharing when you do, just your name, address, and password, which are then harvested for profit by the threat actor who has fooled you. Given its likelihood of being used as a platform for such scams, Facebook has been on the cyber news radar for some time. In February last year, they exposed the Is That You phishing scam on its messenger service that had been doing the rounds since at least 2017. Since then, the research team has remained vigilant, keeping tabs on suspect activities on Facebook. Recently, that vigilance was rewarded when they received a tip-off from fellow cyber investigator Aidan Rainey, who first reached out to them after their original findings were published that malicious links were being distributed to users. Upon further examination, it turned out that thousands of these phishing links had been distributed through a devious network sprawling across the back channels of the social media platform. Left unchecked, this could result in hundreds of thousands of unwary social media users falling foul of the dodgy links, the Is That You scam, was thought to have hooked in around 500,000 victims before it was uncovered. That campaign was initiated by sending the potential mark a message from one of their Facebook contacts. The message contained what appears to be a video link to with a text in German suggesting that they are featured in the clip. A thorough search of researchers or of servers connected to the phishing links turned up a page that was sending credentials to a site called devsbrp.app. Further scrutiny revealed a banner thought to be attached to a control panel with the text "Panel FPS by Braun Yipper" written on it. Using these as keywords in a subsequent search led the research team straight to the panel and banner creator, whose email address and password combinations were also discovered, neatly turning the tables on cybercriminals used to stealing credentials on unsuspecting web users. Using the threat actor's own details, Cybernews accessed the website that turned out to be the command and control center for most of the phishing attacks linked to the gang, thought to number at least 5 threat actors, but possibly many more. This provided their intrepid investigators with a trove of information on the crooks behind the Facebook phishing scam, including their likely country of residence, the Dominican Republic. One of the suspects that Rainey identified is likely the same threat actor that the Cybernews research team was able to name in February 2021. Back then, they sent the relevant information to the Cyber Emergency Response Team in Dominican Republic, as evidence suggested that the campaign was also launched from there. At the time of writing, all relevant information had been turned or handed over to authorities pending further investigation. Horizon 3 security researchers have released a proof-of-concept exploit and technical analysis for the critical authentication bypass vulnerability CVE-2022-22972 affecting multiple VMware products. The virtualization giant recently warned that a threat actor can exploit the CVE-2022-22972 flaw with the CVS's base score of 9.8 to obtain admin privileges and urges customers to install patches immediately. This critical vulnerability should be patched or mitigated immediately per the instructions of VMSA 2021-0014. The ramifications of this vulnerability are serious, states VMware. The CVE 2022-22972 flaw affects Workspace ONE Access, VMware Identity Manager, and vRealize Automation. VMware Workspace ONE Access, Identity Manager, and vRealize Automation contain an authentication bypass vulnerability affecting local domain users, reads the advisory published by VMware. A malicious actor with network access to the UI may be able to obtain administrative access without the need for authentication. The company acknowledged Bruno Lopez of Innotech Security for the discovery of the flaw. VMware addressed the flaw and also provided workarounds for admins who cannot immediately install security patches. VMware did not provide technical details about the flaw. Then Horizon 3 researchers performed an analysis of the patch. Our POC sends requests starting at the /VCAC endpoint the same way a browser would and parses the login page to extract these hidden fields. These hidden fields are then encoded into the body of the final post with the host header set to our custom login server. The POC then parses the response to extract the authentication tokens. These tokens can be used to execute actions as the chosen user, reads the analysis published by the researchers. This script can be used to bypass authentication on vRealize Automation 7.6 using CVE 2022-22972. Workspace ONE and VDM have different authentication endpoints, but the crux of the vulnerability remains the same. Threat actors could easily exploit this issue. Searching on Shodan.io for the affected VMware applications, they could find organizations in healthcare and education industries, and state government potentially would be vulnerable. The experts pointed out that the CVE 2022-22972 issue is a relatively simple host header manipulation vulnerability. The ERMAC Android Banking Trojan version 2.0 can target an increasing number of applications, passing from 378 to 467 target applications to steal account credentials and crypto wallets. ERMAC was first spotted by researchers from ThreatFabric in July 2021. It is based on the popular banking Trojan Cerberus. The source code of Cerberus was released in September 2020 on underground hacking forums after its operators failed in auction. According to the experts, ERMAC is operated by threat actors behind the BlackRock mobile malware. ERMAC 2.0 was discovered by ESET researchers after a campaign impersonating Bolt food targeting Polish users. The malware is available for rent on underground forums for $5,000 per month since March 2022. ERMAC 2.0 is able to steal credentials for financial and cryptocurrency apps, including the list of targeted apps that are sent by the command and control server. The researchers also shared indicators of compromise for this version. Researchers from Cyber analyzed the malware after initial discovery made by ESET. ERMAC first determines what applications are installed on the host device and then sends the information to the command and control server. Researchers from Cyber published a technical analysis of the malware after the initial discovery made by ESET. The malicious app asks for 43 permissions, of which the TA exploits 12. The list of permissions requested to conduct malicious activities and take over the infected device include: request install packages, call phone, receive SMS, read SMS, send SMS, read contacts, read phone state, system alert window, read external storage, record audio, write external storage. The list of commands supported by ERMAC 2.0 to execute malicious operations, so on top of those previously named ones, includes downloading injections, logs, check app, registration, update bot params, and download injection. The threat actor behind ERMAC used the leaked code from a well-known malware variant named Cerberus and modified the code to sell the Android botnets in cybercrime forums. Interestingly, it was observed that ERMAC 2.0 is distributed rapidly through various phishing sites, primarily targeting Polish users, concludes Cyber. ERMAC 2.0 steals credentials from different crypto wallets and targets multiple banking applications worldwide. It's foreseen that the TA behind ERMAC 2.0 will continue to develop new versions with more targeted applications, new TTPs, and new delivery methods. The FBI issued an alert to inform the higher education sector about the availability of login credentials on dark web forums that can be used by threat actors to launch attacks against individuals and organizations in the industry. The availability of this data is the result of continued attacks conducted by threat actors against U.S. college and universities. The alert also includes recommendations and mitigations for these types of attacks. The FBI is informing academic partners of identified U.S. college and university credentials advertised for sale on online criminal marketplaces and publicly accessible forums. This exposure of sensitive credential and network access information, especially privileged user accounts, could lead to subsequent cyber attacks against individual users or affiliated organizations, reads the alert published by the FBI. Crooks obtain the information by conducting spear phishing and ransomware attacks or other means. In 2017, crooks launched a phishing campaign against universities to compromise .edu accounts. The attackers set up fake university login pages and embedded a credential harvester link in phishing emails. In May 2021, over 36,000 email and password combinations for .edu email accounts were offered for sale on a publicly available instant messaging platform. Recently, in January 2022, threat actors had been observed offering for sale network and VPN access credentials belonging to U.S.-based universities and colleges on Russian cybercrime forums. A team of researchers from Zhejiang University and Technical University of Darmstadt devised a technique dubbed Ghost Touch to remotely control capacitive touchscreens using electromagnetic signals. According to the experts, Ghost Touch is the first active contactless active attack against capacitive touchscreens. Ghost Touch uses electromagnetic interference to remotely inject fake touch points into a capacitive device. The researchers demonstrated how to inject two types of basic touch events: taps and swipes, into targeted locations of the touchscreen. The events allowed the researchers to control the devices, i.e. answering an eavesdropping phone call, pressing the button, swiping up to unlock. The attack technique was successful on 9 smartphone models. We can inject targeted taps continuously with a standard deviation of as low as 14.6 times 19.2 pixels from the target area, a delay of less than 0.5 seconds, and a distance of up to 40 millimeters. We show the real-world impact of the Ghost Touch attacks in a few proof-of-concept scenarios, including answering an eavesdropping phone call, pressing the button, swiping up to unlock, and entering a password, reads the research paper published by the academics. Finally, we discuss potential hardware and software countermeasures to mitigate the attack. The Ghost Touch system consists of 2 components, a touch injector and a phone locator. The touch injector is used to inject phone events into the touch screen and includes a signal generator, an amplifier, an on-off switch, and a receiving antenna array. The phone locator is used to identify the position of the touchscreen and consists of a sensing antenna array, a data acquisition device, and a location calculator. The experimental lab setup by the researchers is composed of an electrostatic gun used to generate a strong pulse signal, which is sent to an antenna to transmit an electromagnetic field to the touchscreen. The experts tested the technique against 9 different smartphone models, including Galaxy A10s, Huawei P30 Lites, Honor View 10s, Galaxy S20 FE 5Gs, Nexus 5X, Redmi Note 9S, Nokia 7.2, Redmi 8, and an iPhone SE from 2020. The researchers provided a series of countermeasures to neutralize the attack, including adding electromagnetic shielding to block EMI, reinforcing the touchscreen, improving the detection algorithm of the touchscreen, and forcing some form of authentication for the execution of high-risk actions. The Microsoft 365 Defender research team discovered 4 vulnerabilities: CVE-2022-229 42598, 2021 42599, 2021 42600, 2021 42601 in a mobile framework owned by MCE Systems that is used by several mobile carriers in pre-installed Android system apps. The researchers discovered the flaws in September 2021 and reported them to MCE Systems and affected mobile service providers through Coordinated Vulnerability Disclosure, or CVD, via Microsoft Security Vulnerability Research. The experts pointed out that the vulnerabilities affect apps with millions of downloads. The good news is that the flaws have been fixed. Threat actors could have abused these pre-installed apps to access system configuration and sensitive information. As it is with many of pre-installed or default applications that most Android devices come with these days, some of the affected apps cannot be fully uninstalled or disabled without gaining root access to the device. We worked with MCE Systems, the developer of the framework, and the affected mobile service providers to solve these issues, reads the post published by Microsoft. The bad news is that some of the affected apps cannot be fully uninstalled or disabled without root access to the device. The experts discovered that the framework had a browsable service activity that can be remotely invoked to exploit several vulnerabilities. Threat actors could exploit these issues to implant a persistent backdoor or take substantial control over the device. The framework was designed to implement self-diagnostic mechanisms. For this reason, it runs with permissions to valuable resources. Microsoft experts highlighted that affiliated apps also included extensive device privileges that could be exploited via the vulnerable framework. MCE Systems has fixed the issue and provided framework updates to the impacted providers. The good news is that, again, at the time of publication, the researchers are not aware of attacks in the wild exploiting these vulnerabilities. Several other module service providers were found using vulnerable frameworks with their respective apps, suggesting that there could be additional providers still undiscovered that may be impacted, concludes the report. GitHub provided additional details about the incident that it suffered in April. The attackers were able to steal nearly 100,000 NPM users' credentials. In April, GitHub uncovered that threat actors were using stolen OAuth user tokens to gain access to their repositories and download private data from several organizations. The attackers abused stolen OAuth user tokens issued to 2 third-party OAuth integrators, Heroku and Travis CI, to download data from dozens of organizations, including NPM. GitHub excluded that the attacker obtained these tokens via compromise of GitHub or its systems. The company explained that the stolen tokens used to access the repositories are not stored by GitHub in their original usable formats. On April 12th, the company launched an investigation into a series of unauthorized access to data stored in repositories of dozens of organizations. The experts first detected the intrusion on April 12th when the company's security team identified unauthorized access to their NPM production infrastructure using a compromised AWS API key. So GitHub's own NPM production infrastructure was accessed using by unauthorized individuals. So the threat actors allegedly obtained the AWS API key by downloading a set of unspecified private NPM repositories using the stolen OAuth token from one of the 2 affected OAuth applications. GitHub revoked the access tokens associated with the affected apps. Now, the Microsoft-owned company provided an update on the incident. The attackers were able to escalate access to NPM infrastructure and access the following files exfiltrated from NPM storage. A backup of skimdb.npmjs.com containing data from April 17, 2021 with the following information, archive of user information from 2015. This contained NPM usernames, password hashes, and email addresses for roughly 100,000 NPM users. All private NPM package manifests and package metadata as of April 7, 2021. A series of CSVs containing an archive of all names and version numbers of published versions of all NPM private packages as of April 10, 2022. Private packages from 2 organizations. The analysis of the log and package hash verification suggests that the attackers did not modify any package in the repository or publish any new versions of existing packages. An additional investigation unrelated to the OAuth token attack revealed a number of plain text user credentials for the NPM registry that were collected in internal logs as a result of the integration of NPM into GitHub logging systems. The company is resetting the passwords of impacted users and notifying users by mail. So GitHub, in a sense, was essentially storing some credentials for NPM users in plain text. According to a Google cybersecurity official and the former head of UK foreign intelligence, the very English co-op DETET website was set up to publish private emails from Brexit supporters, including former British MI6 chief Richard Dearlove, leading Brexit campaigner Gisela Stewart, and historian Robert Toombs. According to Reuters, at least some victims of the leak confirmed the authenticity of the messages and revealed they were targeted by Russian-linked hackers. Google's threat analysis group chief Shane Huntley told Reuters was set up by a Russia-linked app dubbed Cold River. At this time, it is unclear how the website has obtained the sensitive emails. Reuters pointed out that the most of the messages mainly appear to have been exchanged using Proton Mail accounts. In April, Malware Hunter Team and Bleeping Computer reported the launch of a new dark web marketplace called Industrial Spy that sells stolen data and offers free stolen data to its members. Malware Hunter Team researchers spotted malware samples that drop the following wallpaper or drop a wallpaper that promotes the site. Upon executing the malware, it creates readme.txt files in every folder on the machine. The content of the files includes the description of the service and a link to the Tor site. The description for the marketplace reads, "There you can buy or download for free private and compromising data of your competitors. We publish schemes, drawings, technologies, political and military secrets, accounting reports, and clients' databases. All these things were gathered from the largest worldwide companies, conglomerates, and concerns with every activity. We gather data using vulnerability in their IT infrastructure. Industrial Spy Team processes huge massives every day to divide your results. You can feed it in their portal." So all of that misspelling is there by design. I don't know. Industrial Spy is a marketplace that offers businesses data on their competitors, including intellectual property and trade secrets. The marketplace has different levels of data offerings, from $2 for individual files up to premium stolen data related, which represents all data stolen from an organization, and that could be proposed for millions of dollars. Some data dumps are available on Industrial Spy for free. They were likely downloaded from leak sites of ransomware gangs or other hacking forums. Now, Bleeping Computer reported that the Industrial Spy data marketplace launched its own ransomware operation. Recently, Malware Hunter Team researchers discovered a new sample of the Industrial Spy malware, which appeared like a ransom note. Additional investigation in the ransom note suggested the link with another ransomware operation. The TOX ID and email address reported in the ransom note were the same as the ransom note created by another sample of malware uploaded to VirusTotal that links to Cuba ransomware. While this does not 100% tie the two groups together, it's very possible that the Industrial Spy threat actors simply used Cuba's information while testing the creation of their ransomware, states Bleeping Computer. However, it is peculiar and something that security researchers and analysts will need to keep an eye on. Researchers at 360 Keyhoe observed a wave of DDoS attacks launched by Russian-linked APT C53, aka Gamaredon, and reported that the threat actors are also released an open-source code of a DDoS Trojan called LOIC. The instances of the malware spotted by the experts were compiled in early March, a few days after the Russian invasion of the Ukraine began. We found that multiple command and control servers distributed an open-source DDoS Trojan program, LOIC, compiled by .NET from March 4th to 5th of 2022, reads the advisory published by 360 Keyhoe. While monitoring the activity of the app group, experts observed threat actors conducting multiple attacks, including phishing campaigns and malware attacks. The experts were able to locate the command and control infrastructure used by the nation-state actors. A list of just some of the domains includes decree.mazuko, kachikis.gloratepa, delicate.maizuko, jealousy.jump.artizola, dense.glitrostan. Now, the malicious code distributed by the app group includes hard-coded IP addresses and ports for the targets. The distribution of the LOIC Trojan may be the prelude to a new round of DDoS attacks, concludes the researchers that also shared indicators of compromise for the attacks. Hundreds of people are stranded at airports across India after the SpiceJet airline reported on Wednesday that it was hit with a ransomware attack. The company told the Record that the incidents impacted several flights, particularly at airports where there are restrictions on night operations. While our IT team has, to a large extent, contained and rectified the situation, this has had a cascading effect on our flights, leading to delays, a SpiceJet spokesperson said. SpiceJet is in touch with experts and cybercriminal authorities on the issue. SpiceJet publicly confirmed the ransomware attack on Twitter, but dozens of customers responded with complaints about the company's response to the issue. Several said they were stranded at airports, and some had even boarded flights before being told the planes could not take off because of technical issues. The company later admitted that some flights were being canceled because of the attack. Many of the company's web pages also were not working as of Wednesday afternoon, Eastern Time in the United States. SpiceJet is a low-cost airline and the second largest in India based on the number of domestic passengers it carries, about 12 million a month. Based in Delhi and Hyderabad, the airline typically has about 630 flights per day and operates in 54 Indian cities as well as 15 other locations internationally. This is not the airline's first cybersecurity issue. In 2020, TechCrunch reported that a security researcher managed to hack into SpiceJet systems and gain access to information of 1.2 million passengers, including several government officials. India's national carrier, Air India, said in May 2021 that a data breach at one of its software providers exposed the personal information of more than 4.5 million passengers that use its services. Then in August 2021, Bangkok Airlines admitted that hackers with the Lockbit ransomware gang stole passenger information during a security breach following a ransomware attack. Threat actors could gain access to users' online accounts by leveraging a new type of technique that involves pre-hijacking an account before it's actually registered by the victim. Account pre-hijacking is a new class of attacks that can be used to gain access to a targeted account, and many online services could be vulnerable. Account pre-hijacking was analyzed by independent researcher Avinash Subdohadan and Andrew Pavard of the Microsoft Security Response Center. Microsoft funded the project through a grant that offered up to $75,000 for proposals on improving the security of its identity solutions. Compromised accounts are involved in many attacks, but the targeted accounts are taken over by the attacker after they are created. In pre-hijacking attacks, the attacker predicts which online service will be used by the targeted individual and conducts certain activities before the victim creates an account. These attacks can involve federated identity and single sign-on services, which allow users to sign up for certain online services using existing accounts registered with companies such as Microsoft, Google, and Facebook. In a research paper published last week, Sudhodanan and Pavard described 5 types of pre-hijacking attack methods. In one type of attack, the hacker creates an account using the victim's email address, and the victim later signs up for the same website using a federated identity service. If the website is not capable of merging the two accounts securely, both the attacker and the victim could have access to the account. This could also work if the attacker registers an account using a federated identity, while the victim creates an account on the same website using the classic registration process. Another method involves unexpired session identifiers. The attacker creates an account with the victim's email address and maintains a long-running active session. The legitimate user can reset the password in order to gain access to the account, but the attacker could still maintain access if their session has not been invalidated following the password reset. An attacker could also create an account and add a so-called Trojan identifier that would later give them access to an account. This can be a secondary email address or phone number where password reset or one-time authentication links are sent. Another interesting technique starts with the attacker initiating the process of changing an account's email address to an address they control. This process typically involves a verification URL being sent to the new address. However, the attacker only complicates the verification process at a later date, enabling them to regain access to an account after it has been used by the victim for a certain period of time. The researchers have analyzed 75 popular services and found that at least 35 of them were vulnerable to one or more account pre-hijacking attacks. The list includes popular social media, cloud storage, video conferencing, and blogging services. Affected vendors were notified between March and September 2021, but many online services could still be vulnerable. While these methods can be used against individual users, the researchers believe they could also be leveraged to target an entire organization. For instance, the attacker could sign up for a service that is gaining popularity using previously leaked accounts in attacks aimed at an organization. If the attacker knows that they plan on using a particular service in the future, they could create accounts with publicly available email addresses. Fundamentally, the root cause of account pre-hijacking vulnerabilities is that the service fails to verify that the user actually owns the supplied identifier, like an email address or phone number, before allowing the user to access the account, the researchers explain. Although many services require identifier verification, they often do so asynchronously, allowing the user or attacker to use certain features of the account before the identifier has been verified. Whilst this might improve usability, it creates a window of vulnerability for pre-hijacking attacks. We now move over to other security news. Interpol Secretary General Jürgen Stock declared that nation-state malware will become available on the darknet in a couple of years. In the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine, the malware developed by both nation-state actors and non-nation-state actors represents a serious risk for critical infrastructure and organizations worldwide. Threat actors could perform reverse engineering of military-made malicious code and use their own versions in attacks in the wild. The scenario also opens the doors to false flag operations. Nation-state actors could have access to cyber weapons used in the conflict and use them in attacks in the wild, making the attribution impossible. That is a major concern in the physical world. Weapons that are used on the battlefield and tomorrow will be used by organized crime groups, says Jürgen Stock, the Interpol Secretary General, during a CNBC-moderated panel at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland on Monday. The same applies for the digital weapons that maybe today are used by the military, developed by the military, and tomorrow will be available for cybercriminals, he explained. During the first couple of months after the Russian invasion of the Ukraine, security firms have observed multiple attacks against Ukrainian government entities and organizations. Russia-linked app groups used wipes to destroy the target systems. In some cases, these attacks hit companies operating in other regions, such as Viasat. Early this month, the European Union accused Russia of the cyber attack that hit the satellite KASAT network in Ukraine, operated by Viasat on February 24th. This cyber attack caused communication outages and disruptions in the Ukraine. It also impacted several EU member states. 5,800 Enercon wind turbines in Germany were unreachable due to the spillover from this attack. Security researchers at Sentinel Labs, who investigated the attack, spotted a previously undetected destructive wiper tracked as acid rain that hit routers and modems. Stock urged strong cooperation between governments and law enforcement authorities to prevent nation-state malware to proliferate on the dark web. On the one hand, we're aware of what's going on. On the other hand, we need the data, which are in the private sector, Stock said. We need you, the cyber breach people who get breached. We need their reports. Without your reports, we're blind. That's a gap we need to close together. Not just law enforcement that require that we build bridges between our silos, the islands of information. More exposed are critical infrastructure and supply chain. It is essential to increase the level of security. The Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency has added 41 flaws to its known exploited vulnerabilities catalog, including recently addressed issues in the Android kernel, CVE-2021-1048, and CVE-2021-0920, and Cisco iOS XR, which is CVE-2022-20821. The Cisco iOS XR flaw, CVE-2022-20821, CVS score of 6.5, is actively exploited in attacks in the wild. It resides in the health check RPM of Cisco iOS XR software. An unauthenticated remote attacker could trigger the issue to access the Redis instance that is running within the NOSI container. According to Blinding Operation Directive 22-01, reducing the significant risk of known exploited vulnerabilities. You should all know this by now. Even private companies should be checking all these lists. Some of the flaws added to the catalog in this turn are dated back to 2016, such as the issues affecting Apple, CVE 2016-4655, 2016-4656, 2016-4657, Microsoft, 2016-0162, 2016-3351, 2016-3298, and Cisco devices, 2016-6366, 2016-6367. Other issues impact Google, Mozilla, Facebook, Adobe, and WebKit GTK software products. The vulnerabilities range from 2018 to 2021. Some of the issues have to be addressed by federal agencies by June 13th, while the others need to be fixed by June 14th. Ooh, a whole day. Thanks. The Nigeria police force has arrested the suspected leader of the Silver Terrier cybercrime gang, aka TMT, after a year-long investigation codenamed Operation Delilah. Silver Terrier has been active since at least 2014 and focuses on BEC attacks, or business email compromise. It is a collective of hundreds of individual threat actors. The Nigeria police force, with the support of several cybersecurity companies, Group IB, Palo Alto Networks, Unit 42, and Trend Micro, has identified a 37-year-old Nigerian man that is believed to be one of the leaders of the criminal organization. Cybersecurity company Group IB is one of the cybersecurity firms that helped the police during the investigation. In November 2020, Group IB supported an Interpol-led Operation Falcon targeting the TMT gang. In 2021, a second operation led by the Interpol, codenamed Falcon 2, resulted in the arrest of other Silver Terrier members. The total number of members of the cybercrime gang arrested at this time is 15. The suspect is alleged to have run a transnational cybercrime syndicate that launched mass phishing campaigns on business email compromise schemes targeting companies and individual victims, reads the press release published by Interpol. The man was arrested by the police at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos. In May 2020, researchers at Palo Alto Networks observed the Nigerian cyber gang using COVID-19 lures in a wave of attacks on healthcare and government organizations. The arrest of this alleged prominent cybercriminal in Nigeria is testament to the perseverance of our international coalition of law enforcement and Interpol's private sector partners in combating cybercrime, said Garba Baba Umar, Assistant Inspector General of the Nigeria Police Force, head of Nigeria's Interpol National Central Bureau, and Vice President of Africa in Interpol's Executive Committee. This case underlines both the global nature of cybercrime and the commitment required to deliver a successful arrest through a global to regional operational approach in combating cybercrime, said Bernardo Pelot, Interpol's Assistant Director, Cybercrime Operations. This persistence of national law enforcement agencies, private sector partners, and Interpol teams all contributed to this result. Analyzing vast quantities of data and providing technical and live operational support, Mr. Pilot added, cybercrime is a threat that none of our 195 member countries face alone. With that, I say thanks again for watching. Don't forget to share and subscribe if you haven't already, and smash the bell if you haven't already. And I'll see you on the next episode. Take care.
Don't forget to ride. Farewell.